We often take for granted the things that matter to us most, whether it be a family member, a loyal pet, or even the simple fact that we awaken each morning. These things of greatest importance can often go unappreciated until they are taken from us. For one man, the thing that was taken from him was the thing that he spent his entire life trying to get back: his freedom. From his first moments of life, the 12th Primarch knew no peace. Eldari assassins sent to kill him fell upon him nearly the moment he crawled out of his gestation pod. Though no record of the battle exists, what is known is that none of the Xenos survived. Woe unto you, Eldari killers, for you could not spare the galaxy from the horror to come. Not long after this botched assassination attempt, the ruling inhabitants of the world came across this injured Primarch. In this child they saw vast potential. If these Xenos could fall to his might, then he would certainly be quite the spectacle in the fighting pits. The men that nursed him back to health took him to the planetary capital. Unlike some of the brothers he knew nothing of, the child would not receive a loving family, an opportunity at education, or even a chance to make his own way in the world. No, this stray boy was flung into the fighting pits of Nuceria, where he was forced to kill and kill and kill just to survive, and every bond he forged would end in blood. It was during these first days that the boy rose to prominence in the arena, slaying all he fought, but it was also when he learned his place in the world. He was fighting for his life in the pit, but the people in the stands cheered and clapped for all this senseless slaughter. It was all a game to them. The boy killed until they gave him a name: Angron. Angron Thalkur. It was a harsh, ugly sound that meant child of the mountain. The name held no hope for aspirations for his future, nor the love of a parent. It was simply the name of the place they had decided not to leave him. Angron's solitary life of killing for other people's entertainment was visited by one ray of goodness: the presence of his senior, the gladiator named Anomus. For the short time they spent together in the cave prisons of Nuceria, Angron had the closest thing he would ever have to a father, and the pit took even that away from him too, as seen in Angron, slave of Nuceria. There is no clear memory of when Angron takes the butcher's nails. He was drugged near death to drag him from the caves and bring him to the Dark Tower, where the High Riders' technomancers dwelt. From there, the vision is fractured, unclear and laced with reddened cobwebs of agony. From then on, even memory is glimpsed as though seen through a veil of blood. He wakes, no longer in the tower, but chained to a wall. Then time shifts. He is fighting in the arena. Tethys tries to pass what is happening, but he feels Angron's pain as his own, and it paralyzes him. He can only watch the flickering images and mismatched sounds. Like a damaged vid feed, sand scatters, the distant roar of thousands of throats. He hears his name being screamed right before his face, ending with the crash of his fists against a shattering skull. By the time sense returns to Angron, and the butcher's nails leach back enough for Tethys to witness the memory clearly, Angron is alone again, manacled within his lightless cell. His every limb is bound to the wall with dense, heavy chains. He takes in the air in short, pained breaths hissed through clenched teeth, and the nails, they send torment stabbing through every cell in his body. And the blood, he is covered in it. Its metallic stink fills his nose, and it is still warm as it drips from his chin. His skull throbs from the butcher's nails. His skin is fever hot as his body tries to heal over them, as if they were any other wound, but it can't. That is when he hears it. He hears the guards speaking together, laughing as they count their winnings after Anomus was butchered in the pit. He hears them say the name of the one who killed the only father he had ever known and desecrated his remains. That it was he, Angron, who had slain Anomus. The air is driven from his lungs. An invisible fist has entered his chest, crushing his heart in its grip. Angron sags forward, as far as his chains would allow before they snap taut. Anomus, the wisest of them, the best of them, the one who had spent decades readying the slaves for the uprising, the only one who could rally the gladiators to stand as one and throw off the High Riders' oppression, gone by his hand. The howl that rips from Angron's lips shakes the walls. It is so loud that it rouses the entire arena guard to scramble, fearing a slave rebellion. He screams even after his throat tears and blood bursts from his lips. It continues on for 3 days, a scream of such sadness and pain, nothing like it has ever been heard before or since. Woe unto you, High Riders of Nuceria, for you know not the gift that you have broken. They had forced him to kill his parent, just because Angron wished to spare his life. There was no justice in this world. For his mercy, they had made him into a monster. They would pay. Those High Riders who made his life hell, and Anomus would be avenged. Though his father would not see the day that Angron and his brothers and sisters in slavery would take their freedom. By every last drop of blood in the Primarch's body, it would be taken. The revolt happened quickly. Anomius's cunning had laid the groundwork for it, and Angron's might saw it through. The gladiator slaves tore through the guards of the cave prisons and escaped into the mountains. For several grueling years, they eked out a miserable existence from the barren rock, but they were free. Free to live as they could and to die as they wished. Angron, although endlessly tormented by the butcher's nails, found a new outlet for his newfound rage. Armies were sent to root out this rabble of upstart slaves. He was a whirlwind of death compressed into the shape of a man. Where he walked, blood watered the soil, and bones soon outnumbered the rocks. None could stand before his might, and no amount of carnage could slake his bloodthirst. But one man can only do so much. Even a man as invincible as a Primarch. The armies of the High Riders were endless, and the gladiators were growing weak. They would die here, in these mountains. This was a conviction that visited them all in equal measure. The thought clung to them like a virus, burning behind their eyes and twisting its roots deep in their minds. Angron knew that it would happen soon, perhaps in a day or in the coming night, and he knew that when he drew his last breath, it would be surrounded by the bodies of his brothers and sisters. The sands would run a deeper shade of red on the day of his death. The next morning he saw them. Not an army, 7 armies. The High Riders had sent 7 whole armies to battle against them. This would not be a battle. This was an extermination. They would all be bled like vermin and cast into the earth like so much worm food. But they would die free. They would spend the rest of their lives as slaves to no one. The horn sounded, and the free men and women of Nuceria's fighting arenas prepared to charge. Angron, the undefeated, at their fall. And then he was gone. In a flash of light, Angron, the child of the mountain, stood before a man in gleaming golden armor. The air was dry, as if it hadn't been fresh in years, and he was surrounded. Though some trickery, it seemed that one battle had been traded for another, but the man in gold had other plans, as seen in Ghost of Nuceria. A phalanx of golden-armored warriors surrounded him. The closest took one step further, and Angron killed him for it. The blink of an eye was all it took before he cast the corpse to the ground, torn in half from collar to groin by his bare hands.
Cease!
They backed away in an instant, passing to allow the Emperor to come forward.
Where am I? You are on my ship, away from that planet. My brothers, my sisters, where? What has been done to you is regrettable. What transpired below was regrettable, but we have not the time. You are meant for far grander things than a mere servile war. If you are so mighty, why not help us? Why not step down from your golden palace here, down into the mud where the real struggle is born out? Instead, you rip me off from my destiny, from the only chance I had to ever grasp serenity. To fall a free man beside those with whom I twisted a rope and cast off the shackles. Because I am the Emperor, and my eyes are set upon this galaxy, all her stars and worlds, and not simply the wars or tyrants of any single one. So shall your eyes be set as you take up the mantle you were brought into this life to bear, the mantle of Primarch, to command your legion and unite the stars beneath my banner.
He needed Angron, just like the High Riders did. Blood sport on the hot dust, conquest of the galaxy, it was all the same. 2 different masters, but in the end, Angron was always a slave. I died down there, with my brothers and sisters, freezing, starving, and free. Emperor or no, creator or no, all you will ever get of me is a shell. The ghost of Angron, who never left Nuceria. Then a ghost will have to suffice. Woe unto you, O Emperor of Man, for you have turned your son against you forever. Angron was gifted with a new legion, But unlike his Primarch siblings, he rejected them. The Warhounds were superior in every way to his brothers and sisters of Nuceria, but he never saw them as family. They were merely cheap imitations of his comrades, now long dead on the Red Sands. No matter how hard they fought, Angron would never accept them as his, merely tools for wreaking the slaughter that his father and the Nails demanded of him. The Nails were always buzzing in his head, always urging him to kill. Any emotion save anger was rewarded with piercing pain behind his eyes. They never stopped, not when he woke, not when he slept. The only time they let him feel anything other than pain was in the heat of battle. Even then, he always needed to kill more to keep his relief. Despite stealing Angron away from his gladiator kin in their hour of greatest need, and claiming that he would serve him adequately as a ghost of himself, the Emperor did try to remove the Butcher's nails from Angron's skull. At some point after receiving his legion, Angron was brought to the laboratories under Terra, where he was heavily sedated, so that he could be looked over by the Emperor and his trusted scientist, Arkhan, as seen in Master of Mankind.
Angron?
Yes, I am trying to undo the damage that has been done to the 12th.
The Emperor gestured a free hand, similarly smeared with blood, to 3 screens that still projected a flickering hololithic of the giant's mutilated skull, brain, and spinal column.
It is my belief that you have seen this device before. Is that so?
Yes, Divine One. In my expedition down to the Hexarchian vaults.
Vaults that were resealed by your own decree, ratified by Fabricator General Kelbor Hal, and all findings within unrecorded.
Yes, Divine One. The law within represented a moral threat and a potential perversion of cognition.
But you saw a device like this.
Arkhan nodded.
The profane texts entombed within the Hexarchian vaults named it a cruciumen. I have never seen one implanted and operational, and never of this specific pattern and intensity. In the repose of stasis or storage, the devices in the sealed vault were rather more crude than this construct.
That is to be expected.
Why, in your infinite wisdom, would you plant this device inside a Primarch?
I did not do so, Arkhan.
Then, with great shame, I confess that I am not certain what I am looking at, Divine One.
The 12th and its legion call them the Butcher's Nails. You are looking at modifications to my original template of the 12th. More precisely, you are looking at modifications of primitive genius. Before these examinations, I had believed the enhancements performed upon the 12th on Nuceria were the source of its emotional instability. My hypothesis was that they stirred the 12th to a sense of perpetual but ultimately artificial rage. Yet, the opposite is true. With the alterations made to the limbic lobe and insular cortex, the surgeons have impaired the 12th's ability to regulate any emotion at all. Furthermore, they have rethreaded its capacity to take pleasure in anything but the sensation of anger. They are the only chemicals and electrical signals that flow freely through and from its brain. All else is either dulled to nothingness or rewired to inspire a supreme degree of agony. It is a testament to the durability of my Primarch project that the 12th has managed to survive this long.
His own emotions cause him pain.
No, Arkhan. Everything. Everything causes it pain. Thinking, feeling, breathing. The only respite it has is in the rewired neurological pleasure it receives from chemicals of anger and aggression.
That is vile. Perversion of cognition rather than purification.
Such rewriting of physiology certainly hinders the 12th's higher brain functions. The device is cunningly wrought for something so crude.
Can you remove it?
Of course.
Then, Divine One, why would you leave it there?
This is why. Do you see?
Arkhan saw. The tendrils were sunk deep, rooted in the meat of the brain, threaded to the nervous system, and down in rough serpentine coils around the spinal column. Every movement must have been agony for the Primarch, feeding back into the base emotions of anger and spite. Worse, The brain's limbic lobe and insular cortex were more than just savaged by the pain engine's insertion. They had been surgically attacked and removed even before implantation. The device hammered into his skull hadn't removed those sections of the brain. It had replaced them. Ugly black cybernetics showed on the internal scans, in place of entire sections of the Primarch's brain tissue.
They are the only things keeping him alive.
Indeed, the nails were an inseparable part of Angron, just as integral as a hand or a lung or a heart. Whole sections of his brain were eaten away and replaced by the terrible machine. His urge to kill rose at the slightest provocation, including whatever he considered to be the failures of his sons. His legion, now dubbed the World Eaters, had gained a measure of his approval since taking a facsimile of the Butcher's nails into their own skulls. Angron's captain, Kharn, was the first of his legion to survive this horrific process, earning Angron's begrudging respect. The Emperor highly disapproved of this practice, seeing the newly altered World Eaters as mindless berserkers and little else. He sent his son, Leman Russ, to talk some sense into his wayward brother, not bothering to go himself. A tense standoff took place on the planet of Genna, but being that neither the Wolf King nor the Red Angel were known for patience, negotiations broke down and a brutal battle erupted between the brothers and their legions. The ground ran red with the blood of demigods and transhumans alike. The event would be remembered as the Night of the Wolf, and was one of the first instances of Space Marine upon Space Marine conflict. Woe to you, Eaters of Worlds, for you are following your father down the path of destruction. When the Horus heresy broke out and set the galaxy aflame, Angron needed no convincing to cast off the Emperor's yoke. He had been a slave on Nuceria, and the Emperor treated him as little more than a blunt instrument. Now would be his time to strike where he wished, to conquer where he wanted. At the end of this last war, he would finally be free. Or so he thought. Horus whispered lies and half-truths into Angron's ears, words that he wanted to hear so much that he even heard them over the buzzing of the Butcher's nails. He could be free of the Emperor's chains. He should be free. He would be free. Assigned to work with his brother Lorgar in a campaign known as the Shadow Crusade, Angron and his legion participated in the Battle of Calth, a hammer blow that would see the Ultramarines crippled and out of the war. The Red Angel was as bloodthirsty as ever, taking his time in sacking cities and slaughtering all that crossed his path. The nails sang in his head every time he spilled blood, and they were a sweet symphony now. Why should he stop? The weakling preacher of a brother Horus had sent to babysit him whined that he was wasting both their time. But he knew nothing of the ecstasy of battle. How could he? Lorgar was not brought up in the fighting pits. Lorgar's companions had been scripture and public speaking. He knew nothing. The two brothers, one a reverend, a harbinger of the dark gods, and one a revenant, a frothing animal that longed for carnage, returned to Angron's homeworld of Nuceria. Lorgar told his brother that he deserved a sense of closure, and that he hoped he could overcome the influence of the Butcher's nails. In reality, the winds and whispers of chaos were singing in Lorgar's mind. The dark gods were guiding them here for a terrible event. All they needed was one priest and one sacrifice. Unimpressed by the descendants of the High Riders, Angron ordered that the entire planet be put to the sword. Let the land be awash with their blood. A contingent of Imperial forces arrived to halt the slaughter, including a contingent of Warhound Titans. However, even the god machines of the Mechanicum of Mars found that the Primarch would not be killed so easily, as seen in Betrayer. The Warhound Titans' anti-infantry bolters spat their tracer fire at the prone Lorgar. The first burst chewed glass, spraying fragments everywhere. The second two punched home in the scorched armor, blasting the fallen Emperor's son onto his back, a vessel of cooked, punctured meat. We just killed a Primarch.
Crush him. Leave them nothing to bury.
The Warhound Titan walked, its backward jointed legs hammered down at the Primarch's body. The Warhound shook, unbalanced with one leg in the air. Great gears in the war machine's knees and hip protested with rough mechanical coughs.
Get that leg down. Finish it.
Something's obstructing us. Kai lifted his targeting visor again, looking out of the Warhound's left eye windshield. My princeps, the World Eaters in the ruins. They're cheering. The bleeding demigod had torn his way through the ground, giving voice to his resurrection with a bellow nothing short of Ursine. Gore sheeted him, painting him in a dark, rich red wetness. He threw his axes away, ruined and never to be wielded again, and breathed freedom into his lungs. It smelled of melted glass and felt like sunburn.
Lorgar,
The word-bearer lifted a scalded hand, not for aid, but in warning. Angron had no time to lift his mutilated brother sprawled at his feet. He turned, raising his arms, and took a god machine's weight on his shoulders. Every muscle in his body looked tighter than the iron trying to crush him. Drool streamed through his teeth, skinned knuckles white as he defied the will of a titan. He gave a bear's roar as the foot lowered another half-meter. Sinews crackled in his shoulders. His broken boots skidded back on the pitch of unglassed rock. Something cracked in his spine. Something else cracked in his left knee. The compression of his bones sounded like twigs breaking underfoot, which was a vivid burst of imagination he didn't appreciate. But he could hear his men cheering. He could hear them howling as they killed, crying his name. He dug his boots into the ground, with a smile slitting across his broken angel face. He shifted his slipping blood-slick grip on the titan's clawed foot and started pushing back.
Lorgar, get up. I can't hold this forever.
Angron did manage to save his brother from the Titan, and the two wreaked a bloody harvest of blood and souls on the planet's red sands. But a new foe had arrived. Rabute Guilliman himself. The Primarch and his Ultramarines had recovered quickly from their mauling at Calth, and now the Primarch of the 13th had come to claim his pound of flesh. Wordbearers and World Eaters alike fell before him and his Astartes, and Guilliman engaged Angron in single combat. Their duel was one of hellish proportions, as an unnatural storm gathered above and around them. Lorgar's plan was coming to fruition, but the two brothers were oblivious, one blinded by indignant righteous fury, and the other blinded by the thirst for blood, as seen in Betrayer.
Heretics! No better than the treasonous cultures we've quashed for the last 200 years. Did you learn nothing? Either of you!
Always the teacher. It grieves me this was necessary, Rabute.
Guilliman ignored him, aiming his gauntlet at Angron.
I've heard Lorgar's puling heresies already. What brought you so low, brother? Did the machine in your skull finally refashion your loyalty into madness?
They let me dream. They give me peace. What would you know, struggle, perfect son? When have you fought against the mutilation of your mind? When have you had to do anything more than tally compliances and polish your armor?
Childish. Does it really come down to this? So pitiably childish.
Childish? The people of your world named you Great One. The people of mine call me Slave. Which one of us landed on a paradise of civilization to be raised by a foster father, Rabute? Which one of us was given armies to lead after training in the halls of the McCragan High Riders? Which one of us inherited a strong, cultured kingdom?
Angron sprayed bloody spit as the words left his mouth.
And which one of us had to rise up against a kingdom with nothing but a horde of starving slaves? Which one of us was a child, enslaved on a world of monsters, with his brain cut up by carving knives?
The two Primarchs met again. Guilliman's power gauntlet should have easily deflected Angron's chainswords, but the World Eater's strength drove his brother back step by step.
Listen to your blue-clad wretches yelling of courage and honor, courage and honor, courage and honor. Do you even know the meaning of those words? Courage is fighting the kingdom that enslaves you, no matter that their armies overshadow yours 10,000 to 1. You know nothing of courage. Honor is resisting a tyrant when all others suckle and grow fat on the hypocrisy he feeds them. You know nothing of honor.
Guilliman parried, forced back further by the storm of Angron's blows.
You're still a slave, Angron. Enslaved by your past, blind to the future. Too hateful to learn, too spiteful to prosper.
As he was in many things, Rabute Guilliman was right. Though beaten back by Angron's might and recovered by his sons, Guilliman was not saved solely by them. No, Lorgar was there with a gift from his masters, a final, permanent shackle for his beloved brother. Performing and completing a hellish ritual, Lorgar offered his brother unto the service of the blood god Kharn, who gladly accepted this new plaything. Angron was transformed into a gigantic creature of muscle, leathery wings and hooved feet. His face, once human, was twisted into a death's head, somewhere between that of a pig and a bear. And most tragically ironic of all, the butcher's nails sat atop his skull, where they had always been, singing violence into his thoughts and will, his very soul. Woe unto you, Lorgar Aurelian, for in damning your brother, you have damned yourself. now little more than an animal, and gifted with an unholy blade forged by the Dark Mechanicum. The demon prince Angron carved a fiery, bloody wound across the stars. Even his own legion, even Kharn, were terrified of him, uncertain how to serve this monster they called father, as seen in Prince of Blood.
Father?
Angron's eyes smolder with their own infernal light, the murderous glare of the god's most lethal creation.
Father, is it over?
Kharn steadies himself. To avert his eyes would be to invite death.
Sire, it is Kharn, of the 8th Company. Kharn, sire.
Brave Grub Khan. Yes, I remember you.
This was the most lucid Angron had been in many months.
How long do they live when no one takes their skulls?
Mortals are feeble things, sire. Without intervention, they will endure much less than 100 years, and much of that is spent in pain.
My legion, what is it becoming, Khan?
We are following you, sire. We will follow you into eternity.
Why?
Because you are our father.
I am not your father, Grave Grub. You are not like me. I should not be here.
Angron begins to rise out from behind the throne.
We have only ever wanted to please you, sire. My brothers and I
should not be here. Why do you keep me here? Why do you keep me in the dark?
This is your flagship, sire. Your place is with us. We spill blood together so that you may remain.
Angron shudders, screwing his eyes shut and letting out a vile sound that could almost be a whimper.
No! The Legion is not mine, not anymore. The blood god calls to me. He's calling me to his side, too.
Sire, I assure you, we are free to—
No! Reality itself tracks against his imperfect limbs. My strength is failing. I should be so much more. But you will not let.
The Primarch begins to claw at his own face.
Oh, this is not freedom. It is slavery.
Kharn falls to his knees. It wounds his soul to see his father suffer like this. And then, the demon prince rises to his full height, opening those leathery wings so wide that they almost touch the pillars on each side of the hall. The deck beneath his cloven hooves begins to shudder as the otherworldly energies roil about. He roars again, bringing dust from the arches above.
I will have blood. Blood for the blood god. Blood for my lord, Karl.
Angron would have his fill of blood and skulls soon enough, for Terra awaited, and there were plenty of lambs to choose from. In the skies above the Imperial Palace, he dueled his brother, the other angel, the great angel, Sanguinius. The brothers' battle was something out of ancient myth, one the spitting image of a mighty angel of the heavens, the other a twisted demon coughed out of the blackest circle of hell. Angron held the advantage, fueled by the power and strength of the blood god, but the might of the blood angel was no less potent. Though impaled on Angron's black blade, Sanguinius took hold of the cables of the butcher's nails and tore them free from Angron's skull, doing what his father could not or would not. With a scream, Angron, the child of the mountains, the lord of the red sands, and demon of Khorne, was banished to the warp. With their lord's demise, the World Eaters flew into a frenzy and began massacring their own. Chased from the land and the skies of Terra, the World Eaters retreated to the Eye of Terra, where their father awaited them. Under his influence, they were corrupted completely into Khorne's service. Once a mighty legion, reduced to berserkers and butchers, just like their father. In a cruel twist of irony, Angron and his legion were finally united as slaves. In M41, Angron made planetfall once more, this time onto the surface of the world of Armageddon, where he reaped a bloody toll of skulls for the Skull Throne, only through the combined efforts of the Space Wolves, the sons of his brother who he had fought so long ago, and the Grey Knights, an upstart chapter of cowardly weakling wizards and soothsayers, was he brought low once more, losing his great black blade in the process. After the opening of the Great Rift, Angron was allowed off his leash again, this time to reclaim his old ship, the Conqueror, and take control of a World Eater's fleet, as is their purpose under Kharn's simple directive, to take blood and skulls. Angron and the World Eaters slew and slew, their thirst for blood never sated. This showing of slaughter was so pleasing to the Blood God that he empowered Angron to destroy a holy relic known as the Choral Engine, sending out a horrific psychic shockwave that unleashed the murder curse, corrupting nearly all those present, including those previously thought to have been resistant to corruption, like the Sisters of Battle and the newly minted Primaris Space Marines. Angron's reign of terror would not last forever though, for unbeknownst to him, another beast stalked the stars. During the Battle of Wormwood, Angron arrived seeking the skull of Dante, the chapter master of the Blood Angels. As he stood over the Astartes' broken body, he was interrupted by his returned brother, Lion L. Johnson. The two apex predators fought a duel that none could interrupt. Angron soaked in the favor of Kharn, and the Lion armed with his shining blade, fealty, and a shield of their father, the Emperor. Eventually though, his skill at arms, or perhaps through a twist of fate, the Lion struck a decisive crippling blow on his brother and beheaded him with the edge of his mighty shield. Angron exploded into gore, banished from reality, but he will not stay banished for long. Angron's is a tale of a slave that never got his freedom through his own choices or the choices of others. He was always a pawn in someone else's game. The child that could have grown to be the mightiest of the Primarchs instead fell to be the most mindless berserker in the Dark God's toy box. Now redemption is out of reach for the Red Angel, his soul firmly in Kharn's brass-plated fist. Only time will tell what woes will be wrought upon the stars the next time the Hound slips his leash. Woe unto you, Imperium of Man, for the mad Hound of Kharn comes for your blood. Brothers and sisters of the Imperium, the creation of these chronicles demands time, toil, and no small measure of coin. Each patron who joins our cause does more than support. They become part of the very war engine that drives these tales forward. From humble initiates to exalted demon princes, our Patreon offers many tiers, each created with unique rewards and honors. And at the end of every podcast, we pay tribute to our most valiant supporters, those whose names are etched in digital glory. Join us, and together we shall keep the lore alive.